Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Flight number 48 with service to Kitchen Stadium. We ask that you please fasten your headphones at this time, secure your podcasting device, and remember, today's secret ingredient is Biscoff cookies!
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Jeff Curvis, joined by Rich Inman and Max Singer. How you boys doing today?
Wow.
I like cuisine. Let's go.
Jeff, I'm so good. I'm actually going to be cooking a 6-course meal while we record this whole podcast. My secret ingredient this week is Adderall.
Oh my God. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for those who aren't familiar with Kitchen Stadium or with Ale Cuisine, this week we are diving into the original Iron Chef. But before we dive in too deep, Max, do you mind telling folks what this podcast is all about?
So, here at TV Pilot's License, we analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn about how these programs came to be, if they're effective pilots that make us want to watch more and if they can be made today. Go back and listen to our older episodes wherever you get your podcasts from. Check us out on YouTube to enjoy our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard, boy.
You're in for a treat. And Rich, speaking of treats, what is your question of the week?
Oh boy. So I know this is something that we talked a lot about in college, that we wanted to do a Iron Chef challenge of all the guys in our senior year house and just try to see what we could come up with for like Fritos or 7-Eleven frozen burritos or something like that. I want to know, what is a fun ingredient you think you could nail on Iron Chef? What is the one ingredient when they lift the veil? What are you getting? What would your eyes grow as big as dinner plates for?
Ooh, are we doing a dessert course?
Oh, that is a solid question.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. I'm gonna go oyster.
Ooh.
Okay.
I'm gonna go oyster.
Okay.
I think that there's a lot that you could do with the meat, the brine. I think there's definitely like delicate and like fried and savory ingredients too. I've also had a few different like stout beers over time that have had like oyster shells steeped into it for like a weird kind of like briny sweetness to stout beer. So I think there's like some fun things to use at the ice cream machine. Although as a cooking show fan, I know you never use the ice cream machine, but I'm gonna go oysters.
Hey, not to spoil anything, but we got the ice cream in this pilot episode. We got fish ice cream, baby.
Not to spoil anything, but my oysters.
What about you, Jeff?
I think I'd have to go with Japanese sweet potatoes. I absolutely am in love with Japanese sweet potatoes. Yakimo is like one of the greatest desserts of all time. And if you've never done it, just put an oven as high as you can, wrap some Japanese sweet potatoes up in tinfoil and leave them in for an hour, and then it is a delectable treat.
Jeff spent his entire hour in Kitchen Stadium roasting a potato.
He put it in the microwave for 58 minutes and then tried to cool it off. He tried to blow on it for 2 minutes.
But no, I think there's so many things to do. Like, I'd have to do like a Japanese sweet potato latke. Maybe I would have a bagel randomly appear. Who knows? But I think that it would be a delight, and it's something that it's one of my favorite ingredients to use. Rich, I'm curious, what about yourself?
Well, you guys both went with individual ingredients that you could turn into so many different dishes. I went the opposite route, and I'm going with the Take 5 candy bar. Because
he gets like 5 ingredients.
Yeah, you get 5 things. You get chocolate, you get pretzel, you get peanut butter, you get actual peanuts, and you get caramel. You can do anything you want with all of those. I feel like that would be like maybe one of the funnest things to do on Iron Chef. And yeah, as you can tell, I thought about this question a lot.
literally one of the greatest candy bars of all time is the Take 5, and we were all alive when it was invented. We are so old.
God, I can't believe Rich brought sabermetrics to Kitchen Stadium. He figured out how to like game the system efficiently.
That won't be the last time we throw that into the mix.
Stats are ruining the game. Stats are ruining the game.
Well, Rich,
they already have a pitch clock.
Thank you so much for that question of the week. But before we talk even more about Iron Chef, a quick word from our sponsors.
It's so quick.
Welcome back. Let's talk a little bit more about Iron Chef, and let's start off with a synopsis. Chefs from all over the world come to Kitchen Stadium to do culinary battle with one of the Chairman Kaga's Iron Chefs. Very simple. I think that actually does a fantastic job of giving us a little bit of exposition about what we're going to dive into today. But Max, there's a lot more that went into this show, and I'd love to hear from you what that is.
Yes. If memory serves me right, we're talking about the premiere of Iron Chef today on TV Pilot's License. But a little bit of context for the folks listening at home. We're not going to be talking about the original 1993 premiere, but rather the first episode, which aired in the United States on Food Network on July 9th, 1999, which is the Red Snapper Battle. So, originally produced by Fuji Television and premiering in Japan on October 10th, 1993, the series began to appear in some independent TV stations around the US in 1997 and became this mysterious cult hit that built a buzz by word of mouth and early internet. These episodes originally aired with subtitles before being pulled due to Japanese copyright laws. The show was then picked up by Food Network in 1999 and began premiering in the States with what's actually the middle of season 4 of the Japanese series. Food Network aired it from season 4 all the way to the end of season 7, then started to show some of the specials and spin-offs they did. They did a few profile episodes of the Iron Chefs themselves, and then began to show seasons 2, 3, and the other half of 4 out of order. The original Japanese season 1 never aired in the United States. If you do want to do a deep dive, it is certainly available in bootlegs and like web torrents and things like that. But here at TVPL, we obviously want our audiences to be encouraged to watch these shows. This program is streaming on a couple of different platforms that we're not going to give free clout to. So go and find it, though, and you could watch Red Snapper Battle, the first American episode. A big part of the allure of Iron Chef is, of course, the wild flamboyance of Chairman Kaga, who is portrayed by actor Takeshi Kaga, who had an extensive career in Japanese film, as well as an illustrious career in the Japanese musical theater scene. Kaga starred in the Japanese productions of so many hit musicals, including Jesus and Jesus Christ Superstar, Tony and West Side Story, Dr. Jekyll and Jekyll and Hyde, Mac the Knife and Threepenny Opera, and Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, even taking part in Royal Albert Hall's 10th anniversary special in 1995, where Valjeans from 17 different countries joined together on stage to sing. For people who are also cartoon and anime fans, he voiced the villain in the original Japanese version of Pokemon the movie 2000.
What?
Iron Chef also has this fascinating obsession with French literature. The opening title card to every episode is a quote from Jean-Ephelme Brillant-Savarin, an 18th century writer considered the first food writer. The quote, "If memory serves me right," that Chairman Kaga began his narrations with is from the 19th century French poet Arthur Rimbaud. And of course, the battle cry for everything in Kitchen Stadium, "A la cuisine." What this Francophile obsession is, I don't know. It's incredibly dramatic, though. There's such a fun flair. This episode is unlike anything we've done on this podcast before, so I'm really excited. I hope you enjoy. And LA podcast.
So
that was beautiful.
Let's dive into Iron Chef. And Max, you talked about those quotes. Our title card this episode just says, "Tell me what you eat, and I'll tell you what you are." And that seems to be the beginning of this storytelling that we're given of Kaga and the quest to build Kitchen Stadium and build this arena of what is top chefs in their game. Top Chefs is a different TV show. The greatest chefs within their game,
the most
competing
ironest chefs.
They're so full of iron. They're so healthy. So much beef. And they're competing against each other in this wild TV show. But this day is unlike any other. And Max, we were talking about this before we started filming. This almost does seem like a pilot because we have a new chef who is joining these established chefs. Rich, do you mind telling me what are the different specialties that these chefs might have within Kitchen Stadium?
Well, it looks like there's only 3. And I was honestly having never watched the Japanese version of this before, I was honestly very shocked. I was not expecting this to be the 3 types of cuisine that you could really like battle about. But you got Iron Chef Japanese, which is obviously specializing in Japanese cuisine. You have Iron Chef Italian, which was really not expecting. That was way out of left field for me. And then Iron Chef French. I guess French just being their tribute to the birthplace of like Western cooking techniques and stuff like that.
And Iron Chef Chinese.
Oh, and Iron Chef Chinese. Yes, all 4.
And we didn't just get these 4 people who said that they were specialists within this cuisine. We got 4 specialized, unique costumes that these chefs had to wear while cooking in a very chaotic kitchen at all of these times. But they also continue to build this narrative as we have a new chef who is working, and this name might sound a little bit familiar for our audience, but Max, do you mind telling folks a little bit about the new chef that we get to hear about today?
Yeah, it's funny. This is such a pilot because like it begins with the first day of the new Japanese Iron Chef, who of course is Masahiro Morimoto, who's become this just like massive celebrity chef in the years since. At the time, though, and I actually don't think I realized this, he was running the restaurant Nobu, which now is also just like an empire. But back in the day, it was just like one sushi restaurant in Tribeca, co-owned by Bobby D, Robert De Niro himself. And I'm laughing so hard at all of the celebrity like star photos they show with Morimoto here. I had to jot them down because they show Gina Davis, Whitney Houston, and Sylvester Stallone. And then a copy of the 1998 Zagat book. But yeah, it's a pilot. It's the first day of someone on the job, and it's a huge exposition dump. Jeff, you kind of touched upon this, but do you mind if I read the exposition?
Go for it.
5 years ago, a man's fantasy became a reality in a form never seen before. Kitchen Stadium, a giant cooking arena. The motivation for spending his fortune, again, it's an actor playing this character, to create Kitchen Stadium was to encounter new original cuisines, which could be called true artistic creations. To realize his dream, he secretly started choosing the top chefs of various styles of cooking, and he named his men the Iron Chefs, the invincible men of culinary skills. I love this.
Wow.
Kitchen Stadium is the arena where Iron Chefs await the challenges of master chefs from around the world. Both the Iron Chef and Challenger have 1 hour to tackle the theme ingredient of the day. Using all their senses, skill, creativity, they are to prepare artistic dishes never tasted before. And if ever a challenger wins over the Iron Chef, he or she will gain the people's ovation and fame forever. Every battle, reputations are on the line in Kitchen Stadium, where master chefs pit their artistic creations against each other. What inspiration does today's challenger bring, and how will the Iron Chef fight back? The heat will be on.
That's so dramatic. I love this guy.
This is unlike any show that we've watched, right? Because this is our first true game show we've done, but also in the sense of the amount of exposition that this show is responsible for giving us at the beginning of the episode, of understanding who our competitor is, as well as who Morimoto
Did
is.
you notice what the newspaper headline said when they show him sitting on the stoop reading the paper?
This is the New York Post.
No, I did not.
It's an issue of the New York Post, and it says, "Let him come home."
Oh my God.
Is that wait? Hold on. Is that a reference to Elian Gonzalez?
Oh no! Oh no!
I mean, no, I'm serious.
Oh, I assumed it was them implying that Morimoto gets to go home to Japan to battle at Kitchen Stadium.
No, he's reading a New York Post, and I think it's about Elian Gonzalez because it's what, 1996? 1998?
Oh, man, I thought there was deeper artistic meaning in this.
Yeah, you wish. You wish.
That's absolutely bonkers. I think that one of the things that's great about this episode, though, is we do really paint whom this competitor is and the qualifications of this human being, right? Just learning he's been, if I am reading my notes correctly, working at the same restaurant for basically 20 years, working his way into becoming the head chef of this restaurant.
And Jeff is referring to Chef Yukio Hiroyama, our competitor today, who runs a restaurant called Hanyate in Yokohama.
And I genuinely, even though we have not talked about game shows before, there is a certain level of storytelling that the show is responsible for doing. And I have to say, at least for this beginning part, meeting Morimoto, meeting our competitor, I'm in. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to see them battle it out.
I don't know if they were able to get this effect by using the dub to their advantage, but after they give Hiroyama's whole background and they give the montage of like his cooking and his culinary prowess and his 20s experience, they ask him like if he's ready to go, and he says, "I'm going to give it my best using all my years of experience." Like, it's so nonchalant. It's such like an underdog. Like, well, I'm going to go out there and give it my best shot.
I mean, that is really it seems like the overarching attempt of Iron Chef in general, or really any cooking competition show, where it's not just enough to have someone make a beautiful meal on TV. It's like you're having someone deal with scarcity and creativity and stuff like that. But you're also, I mean, they couldn't have picked a better quote for the title card of this episode. It's like, tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are. Because, like, that is...
You are what you eat.
Yeah, you are what you eat. Which is probably has to be, like, the worst American paraphrasing of all time. But there's... they really do try to establish, like, who this person is based on their techniques, based on their creative choices. And you're going to see that, like, throughout this episode and referenced, like, constantly by the hosts, by the judges and everything. Every single bit of who this person was before they entered Kitchen Stadium. Thank you. I was like, Kitchen Arena. That doesn't sound right. Every little bit of that person's personality before they come in is going to be dissected by these people who are watching them cook frantically for an hour. I mean, I think they do a really terrific job of this, and I think that is what makes this show so. Like, I think it just the cult popularity in the US. We love a story. We love an underdog story. We love people who are extremely skilled. We love conflict and all that sort of stuff. And this really brings a lot of drama, in addition to, of course, this guy's a musical theater guy, the flamboyant and artistic and shout from the rooftops nature of the host.
So let's talk a little bit about, for those who are not familiar with Iron Chef, let's set the rules of this game out. So in this instance, your competitor is coming into Kitchen Stadium. They hypothetically get the choice of any of the chefs to pick from. As we said, there is a Chinese specialist, there's a Japanese specialist, Italian, and French. So 4 chefs. Based off of whom they pick, there is then a secret ingredient that is revealed that has to be in each of their courses. If you're familiar with the American version of this show, it was established that there were 5 courses no matter what the ingredient would be. But in this series, it is really up to the person how many courses they want to make, which I think is a nice touch. But here's the key fact. They only get an hour. So you could make 10 courses if you really wanted to, but you still get an hour just like everyone else.
Do you know, since you guys have watched this probably a little bit more than I have, like, do you know what is the fewest number of dishes that someone's attempted for this show, for this format, and what's the most?
I'm like, someone's making one dish.
I'm
and everyone has to share it.
It's a big
perfect
soup.
dish.
It's a big soup.
And yeah, in my research, I actually did not see if there was any statistics about that. I have some more statistics. We're going to be talking about which chef you want on your fantasy Iron Chef League in a little bit. But
welcome back to All Fantasy Everything.
Yeah. Oh my god.
What did you guys think of the chef army? Like, we ended the cold open, and there was just
why did they do
100 men in white chef's coats standing before Chairman Kaga.
Those were all EPs, and they were all very upset that they had to be there.
Is that like their essentially army of sous chefs and assistant chefs and stuff like that? Or like, are those the people who are helping out?
No, those are Chairman Kaga's men.
Yeah,
he's leading a militia.
A couple of other things that I want to make sure we tell the audience is this is filmed in front of a live studio audience, as well as there are 4 judges, including the chairman. So there's 5 judges. In case you're curious, only one of these judges has any background or expertise within cooking, which is absolutely bonkers. The rest of them are celebrities, people that you want to see enjoy food and eat food, mainly actors, actresses. I think there was a songwriter in this episode. And then as far as Kitchen Stadium goes, it has everything you need, but it was very much built to have 5 cameramen running around with so many wires.
Oh man, that stressed me out so much.
I was so scared of the wires. But with those rules set, let's talk about the episode that we watched. And
the reveal.
Who would like to reveal what our secret ingredient was in this episode?
Max, do you want to do the voice?
Not doing the voice.
Do the voice. Do the voice. Do the voice. Do the voice.
Do I get in trouble if I do the voice?
I don't know.
If you do the dub voice, I think you're okay.
It is the dubbed voice.
Okay, so all right. Fine. It's an American dub voice. Red Snapper.
There you go. That was very good. So instantly we're in, and not only do we watch these chefs starting to prepare these dishes, but we get commentary from so many different figures. What were your feelings, Rich, when you heard not only our commentators, but we had a guy who was like our man on the street, and we also had the Iron Chefs who weren't chosen, as well as a couple of retired Iron Chefs, and then we had the judges as well, and you had to make your way through all of these different voices at the same time.
Yeah. Not to make too bad of a pun, but that's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And hey, I did it. Yeah, no, that is it for me. Like, if it wasn't, I have to imagine they started eliminating some of these extraneous voices at a certain amount of time, at a certain period.
I don't know, man. This episode's the middle of season 4 of the Japanese.
Yeah, we're in season 4. We have our formula down,
right.
And people want to hear their favorite actors and actresses talking about how they prefer their sashimi of red snapper.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot of people weighing in just because they needed to kill 60 minutes of airtime. But like, the people I wanted to hear from most were obviously the former Iron Chefs and stuff like that, the person on the ground. But my God, what a chaotic scene go down at the bottom there. And there's also, I believe someone made the comment of I'm really thankful that we're up here and they can't really hear us, because they were talking about like their background and like what made them nervous about like their chances during that day or something like that. And also I think some people made some cracks at New York, which was very funny to me.
If
I really love that they're just like shitting on him leaving for New York.
if there was one theme of this episode, it's that I am 99% sure the only thing they knew about Morimoto is that he was a big chef in New York, and like everything he did, even when he wasn't making things that were quote unquote New York centric, that's New York for you. Like everyone in New York.
This dude's about to rack up Michelin
the
stars.
rep is that he's kind of this like young hotshot. They make a crack about how his skills shine brighter than the diamonds in his ears, which I thought was a very funny line. At one point, like in the thick of battle, Morimoto just slams a can of Coca-Cola, and there's the dub. He's such a New Yorker, so unique.
And there, one of the judges
that was just a vocal warm up.
One of the judges also made this comment. I think this was the songwriter who was talking about like how he was a fan of like Frank Sinatra and like classic music, but from Morimoto, he's expecting Prince, or he's expecting Chumbawamba.
Yeah, he says I like it's when he's judging the challenger. He says I like unique stuff like Puff Daddy and Chumbawamba, but these dishes are Frank Sinatra, as to say like Frank Sinatra dishes are like timeless and always great and always work.
Oh.
And like there was one other comment.
Chumbawamba.
So like as we make our way through, I think that even though we do have all of these voices coming in, one of the things that you have to give credit to the director that was on set is making sure that we have some form of a story that is being put together, of seeing these dishes being crafted in not true real time, but like a slightly sped up version of real time.
I mean, pretty close. There, I do want to ask too. I'm just like using you guys as my cooking competition show savants here. A lot of the ingredients that they were using, I remember there was something that was like salt cured from this. One of the contestants used like a salt cured red snapper, and I'm like, you can't do that in 20 minutes. Like you can't salt cure something in 20 minutes. So how much prep time is involved in like actually coming up with this stuff?
So if we're to take a peek behind the curtain, hypothetically,
and if you don't want to know, feel free to hit that fast forward button a few times.
Fast forward like 30 seconds because I'm going to be really quick. Normally, chefs will get about 30 minutes to prep with their team a menu that they would like to put together for the entire thing. Okay. During that 30 minutes, they have to give a producer a list of ingredients that might not be had, so that producer can run out as quickly as they can to the gigantic pantries that they'll have, or find anything specialized. The chefs are also sometimes warned of bringing specialty things like New York newspapers with them to be able to be used on the show. And if you skipped ahead, welcome back. So let's talk a little bit in addition of like when you were seeing some of these dishes specifically to this episode, were there any that you were like, wait a minute, that looks fantastic? Or were there things that you were just like, I might not be eating that, or I might be upset that I have to eat that today?
For me, I'm like, I'm slamming everything. This both contestants make such an insane like meal. There is one dish that Morimoto made that combined foie gras, uni, sweet shrimp, and like and the cured red snapper sashimi, and like that would blow my mind how amazing that would taste. But also, if you serve that at Nobu, that dish alone would cost $600. There's no getting around that. I'm like, this is what he's like when he just has zero like concern for budget. I love that.
Max, what about you?
I'm just reminded of this like early mid 90s time in like the culinary world where like the fanciest dishes were like Wolfgang Puck putting smoked salmon on a pizza and like calling it a delicacy at Spago, or in this case, like when Morimoto's doing like a soup with snapper paste on a bagel, or like the potato chip with caviar. It's like these things that feel so high-low are just such an example of like mid to late 90s cooking to me that it's like it's blowing people's minds and now they feel so ubiquitous to us. But yeah, I would eat everything. Duh.
Yeah,
It all looks really freaking
this
good.
is insane.
And I think one of the things that I love about this show is it very much is an example of how the sausage gets made. Like if we're going back in time to when this show premiered.
Wait,
And
did I miss a dish? Did one of them make sausage?
No, unfortunately, no
God
red
damn
snapper
it.
sausage. But in this instance, I really love seeing how chaotic this kitchen stadium is to get all of these dishes done in this hour of time and in these constraints. Because at this point in time, if you go on to any of these food shows that you see, like let's just say Emeril Lagasse, right? Watching Emeril Lagasse cook Cajun food is a beautiful thing to watch. It's very it looks like poetry. When you're watching Morimoto slam the shit out of a red snapper head so that he can break it in half, it takes you aback. But then when you see the finished product of some of these dishes, you're like, yeah, through this violence comes something so beautiful that then gets to be enjoyed like art.
Well, to your point, Jeff, I think what makes Iron Chef like this phenomenon, like we hadn't seen shows like this at this point in time, is that Iron Chef creates that feeling of the all is lost moment. It creates that moment where like your hero has to climb out and get everything done before the buzzer rings. And I can't recall again like shows doing that with cooking at this time. Again, now you turn on, any channel and there's 17 different gimmicky culinary competitions, and I'm sure we'll get into some of those later, but it's like what Iron Chef did is so wholly original because it tells a story throughout the episode, like those same beats that you would have in any script pilot or otherwise. Iron Chef hits, and that's fascinating. Like someone had to be the first one to come up with that idea and to do that, and I thank them for it.
I mean, I
think.
Oh, go ahead, Rich. Go ahead.
I think what I really love about one cohesive ingredient and why I like to choose the Take 5 candy bar for my challenge ingredient.
That's a callback.
That's a callback, baby. I love that I can watch a skilled chef cook literally every single part of a fish in a different manner, in a way that I wouldn't expect. Stuff that could possibly just be tossed in a broth or something like that. They have found a way to using part of a red snapper as like an infusion for sake sounds unbelievable. Like they're using the spinal cord, they're using the eyes, they're using it's just like, apologies to any of our vegan listeners, but it really just is insane watching someone with that level of skill. And I would watch any type of show with that level of skill. I would like the glass blowing shows on Netflix, or like, any of the other ones where you see someone who has honed a craft for decades. Like just seeing them in their element and watching what they can do with a scarcity of ingredients, it is really, really impressive.
So one of the things that first, I think that one of the themes that we're finding is people love a David and Goliath story, right? People love the idea and the concept of an underdog coming in and facing this greater than life being. And I think what adds a little extra stake, even though it is manufactured, is the idea that it is Morimoto's first day. This is proving
Why
himself.
is today different? It's pilot writing 101.
Why Max loves Passover. But one of my big things is that I think that as we follow, and maybe one of the things that we haven't talked about that this show does a great job of, is it is an educational program in some shape or form. Now, the way they educate us is, I think, in this episode done a disservice because of the dubbing that has to be done, because we got very familiar with one phrase that was used throughout this entire episode, and it was Fuki-san. And that was our man on the street trying to interrupt the judges and the panel talking. But at the same time, for an audience in Japan, right, that is watching this for the first time, seeing an ingredient like a bagel being used is something that they're not familiar with. But Max, there's one particular phrase that I think was used about a bagel. Do you remember that? Because I think that it was an important fact.
Yeah, so when Morimoto starts working on the bagels for his dish, snapper soup, New York style, with bagel covered in snapper paste, one of the commentators asks, "Why bagels?" And the response is, "They're a nice, healthy breakfast item in New York," which good enough for me.
Yeah, that rules. I love a bit of Jewish lore in an all Japanese cook.
Yeah, we were all told
show.
that bagels were healthy for you growing up. It's true.
They're still true to this day.
Oh my goodness. Well, as we got through this episode, it is not just watching these chefs cook, although that is very exciting. And there's some beautiful things that were done. Rich, I think you did such a good job of speaking to just how these red snappers were used, because in modern day Iron Chef, there's a lot of chefs that will be like, I don't need to make a dessert. Both of these chefs made desserts. They were wild.
Featuring red snapper.
But at the end of the day, at the end of the hour, we are then presented with all of these dishes.
And I took notes of every single one of them.
Go for it, Max.
Yeah, baby.
Before that, when the odd field guy asks Morimoto, "It was your first battle, how did it go?" and Morimoto just answers, "No." Which a relatable king. So
they didn't let him finish. He was saying Nobu.
So first up, I didn't know that Chef Hiroyama was going for a Christmas Eve theme because he made 7 fishes. From Hiroyama, we got snapper fin sake, grilled red snapper, fried snapper tail with sweet and sour sauce, snapper and wide jelly, head and turnip stew, steamed whole snapper rice, and snapper cracker with ice cream. From Iron Chef Morimoto, snapper innards braised with miso, snapper with potato chip and yellow sauce, mustard, I don't know, seaweed cured snapper with scallion oil, snapper soup, New York style, with a bagel covered in snapper paste, and Big Apple jelly.
Yeah, baby. Both of them went with like a gelatinous like dish in the middle, and it was so wild. I cannot. That was the one that like really threw me off. I was like, they're cooking at like in a completely different stratosphere.
So, not only one thing that I love about this format is we get to see the story of the courses and how they're going to be served. In this instance, with this small snapshot, I have a problem with the tablecloth they used as a backdrop. We can talk about that in a little bit. But
no. Talk about it now.
Yeah, do it.
Way too many patterns going on. If I am supposed to, if I've learned anything from having friends who have Instagrams for food or watching too many food Instagrams, you want a very solid background color.
No, because we
lighting.
are now enamored with this new Nordic minimalist bullshit from fucking Copenhagen, and that's not how we used to do things.
Not every place is Noma.
It used to be about opulence. Jeff, every single person in this show is wearing a tuxedo, from the man on the field to the broadcasters to celebrity guest judge Masumi Okada, a Japanese actor who's wearing some sort of like red tux, looking like he waits tables at Musso and Frank in his spare time out here in Hollywood. This show is about opulence. There needs to be, you know what? There should be more patterns on that tablecloth, not less.
Yeah,
more. Fuck you and your Nordic bullshit.
6 more patterns.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I personally like it when things look like they're trying to obfuscate facial recognition software.
Oh my God. So after, well, one, thank you for teaching me a little bit about how you both decide to design your homes. I am going to get you I'm getting you the flashiest themed tuxedos that you can ever have to let people know that you're both from California. But what ends up happening is that we watch these chefs feed these judges that we've already been introduced to. Not only do we have our 4 guest judges, but we also have the chairman who is also eating at this point in time. Here's some key facts. These contestants are judged by each of our judges. The chairman does not get a vote in this situation. And it is almost treated like a boxing match. If you're unfamiliar with boxing matches, there's a set number of points that can be given in any round, and that is how things are decided. One of the things that I found a little bit odd, and I'm curious about your 2 thoughts, is they didn't show all of the dishes being eaten. Like, there was an ice cream dish that we never got to see the judges react to at all. Neither of our jelly dishes were reacted to either. Those were taken off camera.
We don't need to watch people eat jelly on camera. It's a weird textural food.
I want to see people eat. If you make a fish jelly, you have to eat the fish jelly on camera. This is Schrodinger's fish jelly. It has to be.
These are actors, these are artists, these are chefs. They're not trying to embarrass themselves by, oops, some jelly slipped off the spoon here on live TV. I think it's probably just in the interest of time, if I had to guess, unless they can get like a really good reaction out of one of them. Because I'd love to try those jelly dishes. That is so wild to me. I would absolutely love that. But yeah, I mean, it's really like anything, the edits are going to favor something that's exciting. It's all about who can get the moment that's going to, like, get your heart rate up.
Yeah, you could either talk about Snapper for the 11th time over the course of 2 chefs, or you could edit in the quote about Puff Daddy and Chumbawamba. And, we got to get the tub thumping reference. This episode is from 1998, originally in Japan.
So, after all of this judging, we are brought to the judge's decision at the end of the day. Would anyone like to announce our winner of this first
Max,
episode?
You got to do the voice. Max.
Iron Chef Morimoto!
Oh, congratulations, Chef.
Although, except my boy, Masumi Okada in his red tuxedo gave the vote to the challenger. He went with Morimoto's opponent.
Yeah, he was the only one. And then he, what I really loved is this was treated almost like a boxing match. At the end of this battle, we heard from each of the judges on why they decided what they decided. And Okada very much said, I'm a traditionalist with my food, and I like traditional Japanese food, and if that's a problem, so be it. Which I appreciate the honesty, because he was, if you looked at the scorecards, it was 18-17, 19-18, 17-18, 18-60, 18-16.
That's super close.
Super close. Morimoto only won by 3 points. And that
makes this so dramatic. That's why this is a great pilot to American audiences.
So
I have to ask too, because watching this, I was like, okay, what is really in this for Morimoto? Like, obviously, Nobu is going to become like a massive mainstay of New York, LA, Vegas, a bunch of different places, Chicago, who knows where else they have them. You're being challenged in the same sense that we're like, when Alabama plays Appalachian State for the first game of the year in college football, like, if you're an Iron Chef, you're expected to win. If you lose, you have way further to fall. Is it like a pride thing? Is it like a marketing thing? Like, why would you do this when it's so much easier to, I mean, you are being exposed to a lot more people, but yeah, I mean, if you lose consistently,
I think it's worth,
that's the high stakes.
I think it's worth noting though that Morimoto's just the chef de cuisine of, at the time, the original Nobu in New York. I don't think he has any sort of actual stake. The restaurant itself is the brainchild of Nobu Matsuhisa and Robert De Niro.
Mm-mm.
Although I'm picturing him like Bobby D standing over the
I,
sushi rice, like seasoning it.
I'm just imagining Robert De Niro from Taxi in Nobu, talking to some of the other chefs. But that's a fantasy for another day.
You
But
cooking for me?
to answer your
Thank you
question,
very much.
what's in it for someone to go out there and lose? What if you go cold? What if you go on a losing streak? And I think the flip side is you have a chance to just like show your prowess on an international level. And if you want to establish yourself as the height of this, then like you go out there and promote. But when I was doing research on this, it turns out there was kind of like some backlash in Japanese culinary circles, like to the people who originally signed on to this show. They thought that it was maybe gimmicky, that they were hurting their reputations. And, everyone seemed to get a huge boost from it. And those, who weren't comfortable or didn't enjoy, they retired and were replaced by other people in their fields. But yeah, it looks like at the end of the day, you get such an audience and you get to introduce your cooking to such a global scale that it's worth the risk of losing.
It's almost like the opposite of what you described. It's almost like the opposite of how the American audience would take it, because we're just like, ooh, celebrity chef, we got to go there. This restaurant's on a list. This restaurant is recommended by Instagram, TikTok, Zagat's, whatever. It's like you're relying on your experience only from critics or friends or something like that, whereas the Japanese audience actually kind of derided them a little bit because of it. That's very fascinating.
I will say I go regularly to a restaurant in my neighborhood that was attended once by a man who has
Are we about to drop a Guy Fieri reference?
I wasn't going to reference his name directly, but thank you for ruining the
Yeah, the SAG prohibits us saying the name Guy Fieri.
Yeah.
Oh, just because he was in.
Damn it.
Is he really?
Max, I have to cut that out now, you motherfucker.
That's not endorsing.
No one knows the rules. No one knows the rules.
Okay. So we have ended our pilot. Were there any things that you loved about this pilot that maybe we didn't discuss while we were discussing the episode?
I'm always unprepared for this question every week.
And it's coming every episode.
Every week.
For me, it's just the opulence and the decadence of it all, that everything feels elevated and escalated and put on a pedestal. And the French quotes are cheesy. The outfits that have like the garnishes and embellishments are cheesy and kind of tacky, but it makes the whole thing fun. Like it's competitive, but it's entertaining. It's not dark. It's not self-serious. Like the work they're doing is obviously very serious. They take their craft seriously, but everyone seems to be having fun. Also, musical theater.
God damn it.
Rich, what about you?
I mean, I'll go back to it again, but and I'll elaborate a little bit more on this. But like a majority of the way that we find recipes, that things are just created and passed down through generations, is a dance of basically scarcity and abundance and time. And really, like, this shows the human brain and creative muscle behind like creating a recipe so well. You really get to see how you're going to like everything gets boiled down to like how someone cuts into a fish just to like fillet it or butcher it, or take the head off for broth or something like that. It really is just like, it is the human experience and connection to cooking in 45 minutes, which is like, I don't know, it's super impressive. I love watching people with this type of skill. It's what my grandmother learned how to cook during the Depression. Like, this is like what you do. It's like you have the ingredients that you're given, and you better make something with it, because otherwise you have no other option. And that is really like I think the human brain just shines creatively like that, and it's really unique to watch it in a TV or in a TV show format.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you, Rich. I think that there is a very in the culture that we live in where food is very much abundantly available in many different formats, there is a beauty of seeing how a beautiful meal is made. Because I think that there is a disconnect for a lot of people of, oh, I sit down in a restaurant, I look at the menu, I see the thing I want, that thing appears, without thinking of the chef that's behind it, the ingredients that are behind it, all of those things, and the story and the emotion and the craft. Just because it's food does not mean it's not art in some circumstances.
Yeah.
And sometimes food is just food. I want to be very clear. Sometimes, you know, when you're at McDonald's and you just want a Big Mac, that Big Mac was made by someone who should be making more money per hour. But it's a Big Mac, and it's an emotional connection. But I think what I also love about this show is it does put so many different components together, right? We get that emotional component, we get that educational component. The moments of comedy are just genuine. They were not workshopped by a group of writers in a room.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, we have suspense that is natural from a competition. There is that they constantly reference to Kitchen Stadium being like a sport, and it is in that sense. And the reward is pride in your craft at the end of the day.
That is like, and there, I mean, to add to that too, there are now entire industries based on preserving and freezing produce, so we can have that like regularly all year round. Like, there's no reason we should have oranges in January, but we do because of freezing and stuff like that. And you know, it brings like I'm going down to the market, here's what's available, here's what's fresh, this is what I'm making feel to it. And I think you said that very well, Jeff.
So we talked about things that we loved, and I love hearing about things we love, but were there any wait a minute moments behind the show that we talked so eloquently about?
The fact that they dressed the Iron Chef Italy guy like the dude on the pizza box, that was a little strange. Was it not?
Max, what about you?
Oh man, I mean, I think it's my favorite part, but it's also my wait a minute, which is just the opulence of it all. When you cut to a guy standing in the middle of a kitchen holding a microphone, wearing like a rental opera tuxedo, like putting a mic in a guy's face in like kitchen whites who's covered in sweat. It's very jarring, and it's like what makes the show fascinating and unique is also the thing that's just like, what am I watching? What's going on here? I do also kind of want to know how many of the dubbed lines are like American jokes. Like, do they call him the Andy Warhol of Japanese cuisine, or is that just like we're looking for a joke in here, or is like an older reference that won't translate to America? I don't know. I was kind of wondering, like, does this dude really know who Chumbawamba is? Like, is he really name dropping Chumbawamba right now? Or were they just like looking for who's got a top 10 hit right now? That'll be a timely reference. This is why timely pop culture references are dangerous, because they don't always age great.
Also, like, isn't it supposed to be way louder in that kitchen? Shouldn't it be like extremely loud in that kitchen? They should be like yelling at each other. It's like the bear, right? It takes 17 people all screaming at each other to make one Italian beef sandwich. That's what the bear is.
I want to give credit to the sound engineers because they did God's work for us not going deaf during this episode. That is another thing that I loved. But a wait a minute moment for me. We talked a little bit about the outfits. Those looked extremely flammable, and I'm very worried if anything goes partially wrong, we might need a new Iron Chef.
Chef.
But with that said, that is not our last question. We also have an in-flight question. Our in-flight question this week came from Instagram, and their question was, where are the judges and the chefs now? So, Max, you did a little bit of research on this, so I'm going to pass it off to you.
Yeah, I dug into the backgrounds of all 4 Iron Chefs who we see on today's episode, all 4 from the American premiere of Iron Chef. And so, Iron Chef Japanese, Masahiro Morimoto, would go on to maintain Iron Chef status on Iron Chef America, also on Food Network. He currently operates 19 restaurants worldwide, along with a wine label, and is probably the only person from this show whose food you could also get at airports. Iron Chef French Hiroyuki Sakai owns the chain of La Rochelle restaurants across Japan and received an award from the French government in 2005 in recognition of his culinary prowess and contribute to French cuisine. The other
That's
2,
cool.
unfortunately, are a little less happy. Iron Chef Italian Masahiko Kobe, the Prince of Pasta and owner of Ristorante Masa, tragically passed away at just 49 years old after a fall in the kitchen at one of his restaurants. And Iron Chef Chinese Chen Kenichi, the Szechuan Sage, as he was nicknamed, the only Iron Chef who stayed on for the entire duration of this series, was a prolific restaurateur and cookbook author with 14 restaurants currently operated by his son. Chef Chen Kenichi, unfortunately, did pass away earlier this year in March of 23 from lung disease.
Oh.
Well, rest in peace to those who have passed, and to those that are still with us, let's make sure that we honor them and make sure that we celebrate them for
That's
a
right.
really
If
awesome
you're listening
legacy.
to this, you have 1 hour to cook a dish for all of us.
Oh my god. Well, Max, thank you for that extra bit of research you did, and
Of
to our
course.
passenger, thanks for that in-flight question. To our other passengers, we'll talk a little bit more about how to submit those later in the episode. Who's ready for a history lesson? Because I did a bunch of research as well. This version of Iron Chef had 7 seasons and 295 different episodes. That is a lot of different secret ingredients, and I challenge someone at home, just grab a piece of paper and write down a single ingredient on a line. Just go. I'll even give you flour. Flour can be a secret ingredient, and let's see how far you get, because I can't even get to 295. As we saw on the show, there were 3 chefs, but over the course of the entirety of the show, there were a total of 7 chefs who were given that title of Iron Chef. The one chef that was switched out the most, or the specialty that was switched out the most, was Iron Chef Japan, which there were a total of 3 different chefs who had that title. There were 2 chefs who had the title of Iron Chef French. With that being said, we said we were going to talk about statistics. Let's talk about the winning percentage of the Iron Chefs in total.
Yeah, give us a tail of the tape.
If you were to go into Kitchen Stadium, there is a 78% chance that you are losing in Kitchen Stadium. So 22% of the time, you are either losing, or in a few rare instances, there were draws because the chefs were tied based off of the overall scoring. They ended up doing multiple specials after the show was done, and did a Iron Chef All-Star charity dinner as well in Australia that raised a really good amount of money. I would have killed to have a seat at one of those tables, because it probably was a bash. The show was deemed a hit in the US, but it was also syndicated a lot of different places internationally, including Australia, Canada, Sweden, Finland, London, and Brazil. The show was actually more recently revived. I believe it was in 2012. There were 2 seasons. There were only 14 episodes. It was 3 brand new chefs, but the success rate was actually a lot lower. I think that probably has something to do with the fact that they didn't have as many episodes to cook and build up and, pack those stats. We would be remiss if we didn't talk about Iron Chef America, with the original version actually being hosted by William Shatner in 2001. And
well, we should distinguish. There's Iron Chef USA, which did not air on Food Network. That was very short.
It was on USA Network.
and then Iron Chef America, which most people commonly knew, and they claimed that the chairman of that one was the nephew of the chairman from Iron Chef. They made a whole elaborate backstory.
And he wasn't?
No, the guy's also an actor.
Oh.
He plays the villain in a very popular movie from a couple of years ago that Jeff's going to be mad if I say on the air, so just look it up, but it's very funny.
He also plays the villain in a lot of other things, and you can definitely find him on those things. I do want to talk about Bobby Flay. Now, Bobby Flay was one of the chefs who appeared on Iron Chef Japan when they did Battle of New York. In that episode, he faced Morimoto. This was the first of 3 different instances where they faced each other. But in this episode, he got electrocuted and complained about the safety of the kitchen, which, you know what? You know what your reward for getting...
I get that.
You know what your reward for getting electrocuted is? You become an Iron Chef on Iron Chef America.
That's how he got his powers?
That's how you beat Bobby Flay. You electrocute him.
Yeah, see, iron doesn't conduct electricity, so all of that was stored in his brain. That's not true. Please do not take that. Wait, I'm pretty sure that's not true. Please do not take that as medical advice.
So, just one last thing. America is not the only place you can find a alternative to this beloved show. You can also find it in Israel, England, Australia, Thailand, Vietnam, Indonesia, Canada, Brazil, and finally, Mexico. There is a newer version of this show that you could potentially find on a streaming platform. We're not going to name that platform today, but if you were...
That platform.
But... If you are looking for this show, it is available plenty of places. As Max talked about at the beginning of the episode is Red Snapper, and you can look up Iron Chef Red Snapper. With that being said, Rich, what is your game of the week?
All right. So, as Max alluded to earlier, the popularity of this show spawned a ton of different reality cooking competition shows. A ton. Now, this wasn't the first cooking competition show. The first one debuted in around the 50s or 60s. I do not recall the name of that one. I will look it up later, and that will be for no one but me.
Beat Julia Child.
That woman had 3 wines before every episode. I would watch the absolute shit out of that.
I'm Julia Child.
I'm gonna beat your ass.
Can I do a quick story really quickly that I like?
You want to do a Julia Child story?
Yeah, I do. So, fun fact about Julia Child is my grandmother, rest her soul, was pen pals with Julia Child.
What?
Yeah. So they were like, they would write to each other. They met each other a few different times. And when my grandmother was in her 20s, she wrote Julia Child and was like, hey, I'd love to come and visit you and just like take a weekend and learn how to cook from you because you're so good at it and I want to learn from you. And Julia Child said, I'm busy as shit. That's not happening. But you know what is happening is I'm going to send you to this small man who is really good at cooking as well. Do you two gentlemen want to guess? This is my game of the week. Who taught my grandmother how to cook? Who is a historic figure within U.S. cooking?
Vern Troyer?
Max?
Dom DeLuise?
James Beard. James Beard personally taught my grandmother how to cook. And I will say she was one of the best cooks in my family. God bless her. She taught... Yeah. On the other side, there's something about my Polish grandmother who was just a demon in the kitchen. She could destroy.
Wow.
But yeah, just a quick thing about cooking that I absolutely love. And the more you know. With that said, though, Rich, go back into your game of the week.
Oh, man. So I want you guys, I pulled a couple of some flops of cooking competition shows, ones that only lasted about one season or maybe even less. And I want you guys to tell me which if this show is fake or not. The first one I have is Candy Crunch. In a 1v1 challenge, confectioners have 30 minutes to make a bag of candy for celebrity judges, all unique ingredients. Was that real or is it fake?
I'm just thinking of the video game that has a very similar name.
Real.
So is this like a what's the candy store in New York that people would go to and lose?
Dylan's.
Is it like is it like
Willy Wonka's?
It's like Dylan's.
The M&M store.
The M&M store, the movie. So
Please don't wish that evil on us.
I'm going to say this is 100% real.
I made that one up. All right, number 2. Rat in the Kitchen. Combining the mole and Chopped, this show made chefs compete in cooking challenges while also figuring out who was sabotaging dishes.
This is 100% real. I've watched an episode of this show.
You watched this show?
Yeah,
I could not believe.
Yeah, this is real. I have seen this one as well.
I cannot believe this is real when I looked it up on a list.
There's only one rat in the kitchen that I want to see, and I can't mention him right now because Jeff will get mad at me.
Untitled cartoon rat cooking project.
I'm a big fan of Patton Oswalt. I'll just say that.
It's called Tiny Chef. All right. Family food fight. Essentially Family Feud with cooking. Teams of family cooks play against one another to crown one clan as champion.
Show me real.
What do you think, Jeff?
That sounds very real to me.
That one is real. All right. Can You Stand the Heat? It's a cooking competition show and dating reality show all mixed into one. 12 Jeffs enter looking for love and a signature dish.
So this is like, Max, this is more into your territory because this reminds me of almost like when The Bachelor did the songwriters that also dated.
Max, are you researching something right now?
No,
are you reading something?
I was trying. It's not this, but so I was just in England and there was a show on TV that was called like Blind Dinner Date, which it was like a British reality show where they had like 3 dudes try to impress a potential suitor to go on a blind date with, and she had to pick based on whose dishes she liked the most. I was trying to remember the British series name.
Oh man, that's so fun.
That sounds fantastic. Max, what's
Jeff,
your
I'm
guess?
going to say real because it sounds like this British show that I remembered watching a few weeks ago.
I could see this. I could 100% see this on like USA Network.
I also made this one up. It is entirely fake.
Rich,
But you didn't make up Blind Dinner Date.
I sure didn't. It turns out I could just get a bunch of shit greenlit in the UK, so I'm gonna go record.
Yeah, it's hilarious that your fake show here is a real show elsewhere.
Even when I was writing this one, I was like, "This seems a little too stupid. I bet they're gonna figure this one out pretty fast."
Who, the Brits?
Because I was also trying to figure out like if the person that they were crushing on also got eliminated, are they also gone? I'm trying to figure out the machinations of this game, and it's almost impossible.
Yeah, spoiler alert, they had nothing to talk about when they went on the date. It was like, oh, you made me that omelet, thank you.
You made me that omelet.
Well, Rich, thank you for that very enlightening game of the week. I'm
just getting more creative by the week. So powerful.
So our plane is coming to a land, and I have 2 more questions for each of you gentlemen. One is, based off of the pilot, would you continue watching this version of Iron Chef, given that there are a variety of reboots that have been done and all of that stuff? And my second question is, do you think that there is a place for all of these reboots of the show that currently exists?
Max, looks like you have an answer.
Yeah, I'll take this one first. Am I going to keep watching this? Absolutely. Now that I'm aware of how much of it is just out there for my consumption 100%. I know from like a little bit that there's actual arcs to Iron Chef at points. There's like masters who battle their own students. There's rematches and grudge matches and rivalries that forms. Apparently, things where like the chairman Kaga gets angry when his Iron Chefs lose a few episodes in a row, and he goes out to like find the ultimate challenger because he's so mad at his chefs. Like there's storytelling here, and it's bonkers, and nothing else on TV encapsulates that. As for bringing it back, I mean, it feels like there's diminishing returns. I don't even know if you mentioned, Jeff, but there's like there's another version that premiered like a year ago somewhere and had no cultural impact. There's been other things like Final Table, which are like international Iron Chef ripoffs from other streamers that also like don't have any cultural impact. And I think the market's just oversaturated now. I don't think that there's that same enthusiasm for culinary competition, maybe Top Chef aside. And I don't think you could get an American audience to buy into the camp that makes this version what it is. This is, for me, just perfect 90s nostalgia. And I'm going to choose to leave it at that.
Rich, what about you?
That's such a great point. It was hard not to try to jump in and agree with basically every point of that. Like I loved watching the creativity of this. I loved the flair. Like Max said, there's so many different ways that they're going to take the show. But again, yeah, I mean, it's at a certain point it becomes filler TV. It's something that they're going to air at 2 p.m. on a Thursday on Food Network or Bravo or whatever the hell. And really, it's like, it's kind of I've always treated cooking shows. Number one is a way to try to like pick up a couple techniques or something like that. Number two, just as kind of like I'm going to turn my brain off and watch people make some amazing stuff, possibly while very stoned, and get really hungry from it. My primary reaction to any cooking competition show is, oh, I wish I was in that room right now. I bet it smells amazing in there. And but like you said, it's but again, it's like it definitely has a diminishing return. That is, I think the shows that really go above and beyond with different types of formatting, like Cutthroat Kitchen was one that kind of came out of the woodwork that felt really fun. I love Alton Brown. Also, I was going to bring up Final Table too. I really enjoyed Final Table, even though, like, yeah, it just kind of didn't really go anywhere. Netflix just like let it drop off the face of the earth, and I don't think anything more needs to be done in the Iron Chef sphere unless you're going crazy historical battles or like or you're adding a bunch of obstacles or something like that. There has to be something that's way out of left field for me to try to tune in again. But am I watching more of this original series? Absolutely. I would love to see how people in Japan interpret the challenges in a different way from the people in the US that I'm used to watching. And I think it's just like, it's a more fascinating mindset to get into. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with Max's answer.
I want to know more about your Iron Chef sphere. It sounds mysterious, like an orb.
Is it anything?
You enter the battle dome.
Is it anything like the Las Vegas sphere that's just a gigantic?
Yeah, they're all trapped in there.
Yeah, there should not be a multi-story sphere with a blinking eyeball on it. There's people who are on drugs coming out of nightclubs on that street.
it's the Iron Chef Battle Dome. If you lose, guess what the next secret ingredient is? It's Steve.
Oh my god. So let me round us out.
Max just did if you want to watch Max do the elaborate Iron Chef gesture, tune into our channel on YouTube.
As far as this show goes, I think that based off of the pilot, I really love this version of the show. I think it is why I love a lot of things from, older TV, where it doesn't take itself too seriously. It doesn't need to be prestige reality TV. It is literally just about the food, and people are having fun. With that being said, as far as rebooting this, I think we've all made some really good points. There's too many cooks in the kitchen as far as food TV shows go. They are bringing back Hell's Kitchen, I just found out, and I legitimately saw an ad and said, why? I think that it's very much a thing of, there are audiences for these shows, right? There is an entire network that is dedicated to consuming and learning about recipes and all of that stuff. And maybe, just maybe, this show or future iterations of it should just stay on that network. Rich, you made a really good point at the beginning, and I don't think you were intending to, but when I watched the
Give him some credit.
I love this.
When I watched...
It's almost midnight for Jeff. He's just going to fucking torch me right now.
When I watched the most of this show was when I was in college, right? When I had terrible sleeping habits, and it was 10 o'clock on a Sunday evening, and I wanted to see my boy Alton B show me what the special ingredient was, and then talk down to me about how he knew everything about that special ingredient. I'm not in that place anymore. I think there are people who probably are in that place, who want to learn everything about food, who want to watch these chefs make things in a highly curated fashion. But in all honesty, I think that there's reasons that certain scripted shows about cooking are picking up in popularity. And we are also seeing, behemoths within the space start to make small changes, such as Top Chef changing its host, and also seeing changes with things like Chopped, where there's like the 30th iteration of that show as well. So, does this belong on TV? Maybe. Will someone do it? Probably. Will I be watching? I don't know.
I love the horrors of capitalism answer to this part of the question. Is someone going to make it? Someone's going to make something about anything. Let's do it.
Nothing matters.
With that being said, our plane has come to a land. But before we depart, where can we find you two gentlemen? Rich, where can we find you?
You can catch me combining fish and ice cream at my freezer, and then you can also catch me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich.
You can catch me enjoying a nice, healthy New York bagel, and on all social media platforms at Maxwell Seg.
And you can find me drinking a Coca-Cola like a New Yorker.
How unique!
You can also find me at Run Jeff Run on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. You can find the TV Pilot's License on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Threads. Do we call Twitter X now? Who the fuck knows?
No.
We're dead naming Twitter.
Speaking of the depressing capitalist part of the show.
You can find the TV Pilot's License on almost every social media channel, as well as almost anywhere you listen to your podcast.
Catch us on all recipes.
If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, you can email us at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com. Give us a call at 213-290-1713, or just slide into our DMs. We're always so excited to hear your suggestions, and we can't wait for the next one.
Jeff doesn't sleep at all. He'll answer your DMs at 3 a.m. Test him.
Yeah.
Just do it. Just test him right now.
Make sure to watch out for announcements about our upcoming episodes that we have. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then, à la cuisine.
I like cuisine.
I like cuisine.